It's 21 past 10 on this Monday. Tonight's Titans. Crusaders crushed, says Kilij Arslan. Light speed limit smashed. And us tricky treaty with natives. Plus, coming up, can you knit a jumper for a saber-tooth? Dr. Digby danger knows. Those are the headlines. Time to rewind the news and put it on repeat.
Malaysia News Bang. Unplugging the truth from the echo chamber of ignorance, one fact at a time. 1096.
Hubusan Kidiba. The Crusaders' ill-fated attempt to bring democracy and freedom fries to the Holy Land has gone pear-shaped. Count Raymond IV of Toulouse and his merry band of heavily armed tourists were ambushed by the Seljuk Turks at the Battle of Sivito. Their battle strategy? Shout, Deus Vult, really loud, and hope for divine intervention.
Survivor Sir Lancelot Dulac, dusting himself off, recounted, "It was a disaster. Those Seljuks popped up like a bad kebab. We were outnumbered, outmaneuvered, and out of toilet paper."
The Crusaders' disastrous planning was evident in their decision to split their forces to search for a decent tavern. "We were thirsty," admitted one Crusader, before being smited by divine retribution.
This defeat has not only disrupted their crusade, but also delayed the Holy Land's tourism season indefinitely. Local souvenir vendors are reportedly devastated.
1983.
In a move that's left the scientific community reeling, the meter has been kidnapped and replaced by a beam of light. The 17th General Conference on Weights and Measures has redefined the meter based on the speed of light, leaving the old meter stick gathering dust in a dark corner.
Dr. Francine Yardstick, chief metrologist, sobbed, "It's an outrage. The meter no longer knows its place in the universe. Is it a distance? Is it a time? It's an existential crisis."
Eyewitnesses report the meter prototype being dragged from the building, muttering about light-speed tyranny and the tyranny of well-defined constants.
Barry Footlong, a traditionalist, fumed, "Next, they'll be measuring the foot based on the speed of a snail. It's madness." Carpenters worldwide are threatening to measure everything in freedom units in protest.
1867.
It turns out the 1867 Medicine Lodge Treaty wasn't about peace and harmony. It was a massive land grab disguised as diplomacy. The US government promised Native American tribes protection and buffalo jerky, but they really wanted their prime bison hunting land.
Eyewitnesses report that government officials distracted tribal leaders with shiny beads while sneaking in clauses about eminent domain and mandatory relocation to Oklahoma. Chief Running Mouth quipped, "They said it was a treaty. I thought it was a timeshare presentation."
Descendants of the treaty's signatories are now demanding reparations, including lifetime passes to Yellowstone and a formal apology from the ghost of Manifest Destiny.
News Bang. Digging deeper than a grave's depth, unveiling truths buried alive.
And now, for a forecast more chaotic than a squirrel in a sock drawer, it's the weather wonder Shakanaka Giles.
Good evening, viewers. Over in leaf-peeping lovely land, those trees are putting on a right colourful show. We're talking reds, yellows, oranges. It's like a psychedelic paint factory exploded. So grab your camera, your walking boots, and maybe a blindfold, just in case those vibrant hues get a bit too much. Up north in Frostbite Falls, it's colder than a penguin's picnic basket, temperatures plummeting like a piano from a skyscraper. If you're heading out for a spot of pumpkin picking, best wrap up warmer than a sausage roll in pastry. And don't forget your thermal socks. And over in Harvest Hoedown Haven, those farmers are busier than a swarm of bees in a honey factory. They're harvesting those crops like there's no tomorrow. So watch your step, folks. And if you see a combine harvester coming your way, run for the hills. And that's all the weather.
(1096).
And now a report from the blood-soaked battlefields of Anatolia, where the Crusaders have just had their chainmail handed to them. It's 1096 and the Battle of Sivito is raging. We go live now to our man on the front lines, dodging scimitars and stray prayers. Brian Bastable. Brian, what in God's name happened?
Martin, it's absolute carnage here. Imagine a butcher's shop after a rugby team's done their weekly shopping, only with more chainmail and fewer sausages. The ground's littered with broken swords, splintered shields, and enough arrows to make a porcupine jealous. Those Seljuk Turks, a fearsome bunch of lads with scimitars sharper than a mother-in-law's tongue, have given those Crusaders a right royal thumping. They're fleeing back to Constantinople faster than a monk late for Vespers. I just saw a chap trying to surrender with a white flag made from his underpants, Martin. Desperate times. And that Seljuk Sultan, Kilij Arslan, he's strutting around like he owns the place. He's got a beard that could house a family of badgers and a grin that could curdle milk. This is a disaster for Christendom, Martin. A right holy headache. This is Brian Bastable Newsbang, signing off from a battlefield that's hotter than a dragon's arse.
1968.
And on this day in 1968, Tokyo's Shinjuku Station became a battleground as 20,000 protesters clashed with police in a violent anti-war demonstration. The occupation, part of widespread Japanese university protests, saw left-wing activists, students and workers unite against Japan's support for the Vietnam War. This unprecedented event led to the first use of the anti-riot law since 1952, resulting in numerous injuries and arrests. The incident underscored the growing anti-war sentiment in Japan during this tumultuous era. And now, over to our correspondent Ken Schitt, who's standing by with more details on this historic clash. Ken.
Ladies and gentlemen, hold on to your panties because I'm about to drop a steaming pile of chaos right into your living rooms. It's 1968 and Tokyo's Shinjuku Station has turned into a goddamn war zone. 20,000 pissed-off students and workers decided to throw the mother of all tantrums, occupying one of the busiest train stations in the city. Why? Because they've got their knickers in a twist over Japan, cozying up to Uncle Sam's Vietnam shenanigans. These rage-fueled maniacs weren't content with just sitting pretty. Oh no, they had to go full psycho, lighting fires and hurling rocks at the boys in blue like it was the world's angriest baseball game. The initial police response? About as effective as a chocolate teapot. 3,000 cops got their asses handed to them faster than you can say sushi. So what did the big wigs do? They dusted off the old anti-riot law, last used when dinosaurs roamed the earth, and called in the cavalry. 25,000 officers descended on Shinjuku like a swarm of angry hornets. It was a clusterfuck of epic proportions, folks. The kind that makes you question humanity's right to exist. By the time the sun rose on October 22nd, the station was cleared, but the stench of tear gas and broken dreams lingered in the air. This, my friends, is what happens when society's pressure cooker blows its lid. Ken Schitt, reporting from the front lines of human idiocy. Back to you in the studio, you magnificent bastards.
Dresden, 1959.
And now, a story that's more twisted than a pretzel on a roller coaster. In 1959, New York City witnessed the grand opening of the Solomon R. Guggenheim Museum, designed by the legendary Frank Lloyd Wright. This architectural marvel, with its iconic spiral design, looks like a giant concrete nautilus shell that landed on Fifth Avenue. Is it a triumph of modern art, or just a really expensive parking garage? For more on this gravity-defying spectacle, we go to our American correspondent, Melody Wintergreen.
New York City, 1959. Melody Wintergreen here at the unveiling of Frank Lloyd Wright's latest masterpiece, the Guggenheim Museum. It's a building that's turning heads faster than a Marilyn Monroe movie premiere. This ain't your mama's museum, folks. Forget those stuffy rectangular boxes. This is a swirling vortex of concrete, a giant upside-down wedding cake, a modernist masterpiece that's making the art world swoon. The crowds are buzzing, the critics are scribbling, and the champagne is flowing like the curves of this architectural wonder. Inside, the artwork is just as daring as the design, with modern masterpieces challenging the very definition of art. It's a visual feast, a sensory overload, a feast for the eyes, and maybe a little headache-inducing. But not everyone's impressed. Some folks, bless their traditional hearts, are calling it a monstrosity, a giant concrete pretzel, an insult to the sanctity of Fifth Avenue. But Wright, the architectural rebel, just shrugs it off. He's known for pushing boundaries, for challenging conventions, and for designing buildings that make you say, wow, or what the heck is that? As the sun sets on this grand opening, one thing is clear. The Guggenheim Museum is here to stay. It's a symbol of America's post-war confidence, its embrace of the new and the daring. It's a love letter to art, to architecture, and to the human spirit's ability to create something truly extraordinary. Melody Wintergreen, Newsbang News from the Guggenheim, where art and architecture have collided, and the result is breathtaking. Literally.
News Bang. Pulling the plug on poppycock and polishing up perspective.
With an environmental report that's more sanitized than a surgical theatre, it's Penelope Windchime. Penelope, what eco-revelations are you disinfecting for us tonight?
Oh, of the horror tonight, viewers. We delve into the unsanitary depths of the Crimean War, a conflict more gruesome than a butcher's shop floor. But fear not, for a beacon of cleanliness emerged from the squalor, a warrior against filth, Florence Nightingale. On this day in 1854, Florence, a woman whose love of hygiene was more fervent than a germaphobe's devotion to hand sanitizer, arrived at a military hospital that was more horrifying than a sewer rat's nest. Imagine the stench, viewers, the piles of festering bandages, the rivers of bodily fluids. It's enough to make a compost heap gag. But Florence, armed with a scrubbing brush and a steely determination, transformed that hospital into a haven of cleanliness. She cleaned, she scrubbed, she organized. Those poor, sick soldiers used to wallowing in their own filth were suddenly treated to fresh sheets, clean bandages, and a bit of fresh air. Revolutionary. This, viewers, was a turning point in medical history. Florence proved that cleanliness wasn't just next to godliness, it was essential for survival, and she made nursing a respectable profession. No longer would those brave women who tended to the sick be seen as mere charwomen. No, they would be hailed as angels of hygiene. This is Penelope Windchime, reminding you to wash your hands, disinfect your surroundings, and for the love of Mother Earth, avoid hospitals at all costs.
And now, for a traffic report that's more mind-bending than a roundabout in a hall of mirrors, it's Polly Beep.
Hello, my little road rockets. Polly Beep here with a traffic update that's more bonkers than a box of frogs. First stop, Australia. A pilot named Frederick Valentich has vanished into thin air over the Bass Strait. His last words? A frantic babble about a UFO shaped like a giant disco ball and a request for more Bee Gees. UFO abduction? Alien dance party? You decide. Over in Seoul, South Korea, the Seongsu Bridge has gone for a swim. It's taken a nosedive into the Han River. They're blaming shoddy construction, but I reckon it's just a case of bridge envy. Those Korean bridges have always had a complex about the Sydney Harbour Bridge, you know. Back in Blighty, the M25 is hosting a pachyderm parade. Escaped circus elephants are causing havoc. They're doing the conga, playing hopscotch with the cars, and I wouldn't be surprised if they've started a trunk painting competition. Avoid it like a dodgy curry, unless you fancy a close encounter of the elephant kind. And finally, on the A1 near Newcastle, it's a traffic cone rebellion. Those cheeky little blighters have gone rogue, demanding better working conditions and a pay rise. They're forming barricades, throwing themselves at windshields and generally causing a right royal cone undrum. This is Polly Beep signing off. Remember, folks, if you see a traffic cone winking at you, run for your life.
1983.
And now, our science correspondent Calamity Prendeville brings us a report on a revolutionary change in measurement that's sure to shed new light on the subject. Calamity? Good evening, viewers. Today marks a momentous occasion in the world of measurement. On this day in 1983, British scientists revolutionised the definition of the metre. No longer content with measuring things against a dusty old stick in Paris, our boffins decided to use light itself.
Now, you might be wondering, how on earth does one measure with light? Well, it's simple, really. The new metre is defined as the distance light travels in a vacuum in precisely 1299 792,758 of a second. Why that oddly specific number, you ask? Well, rumour has it that it's based on the number of cups of tea consumed annually by the average British household.
This breakthrough came courtesy of Dr. Reginald Fothergill and his team at the Peckham Institute of Advanced Measurements. Using nothing more than a BBC Micro, a laser pointer and a stopwatch from Argos, they managed to redefine one of the fundamental units of measurement.
The practical applications are endless. Now, when measuring your curtains, you can simply time how long it takes for light to bounce between the window and the floor. It's foolproof.
Of course, some traditionalists are up in arms. The National Association of Tape Measure Manufacturers has lodged a formal complaint, claiming this new definition puts their livelihoods at risk. But progress marches on, and soon we'll all be measuring our inseams with lasers and atomic clocks. So remember, next time you're told you're a few inches short, just claim the speed of light must have changed. This is Calamity Prendeville, keeping you up to speed with the speed of light on Newsbang.
News Bang, the unvarnished truth painfully applied. 1858.
And now, a scandalous tale from this day in 1858. Jacques Offenbach's operetta, Orpheus in the Underworld, premiered, shocking critics and delighting audiences with its satirical take on Greek mythology and thinly veiled jabs at Napoleon III's court. The production featured the now infamous can-can dance, sending shockwaves through Parisian society. Despite, or perhaps because of its controversial nature, the operetta ran for over 200 performances. For more on this musical sensation, we go to our culture correspondent, Smithsonia Moss.
Now, at this point of the evening, we welcome listeners on FM who've just joined us.
Whoa, Newsbang Nation! Smithsonia Moss here, your resident culture queen. And honey, let me tell you, 1858 was a year that made Paris hotter than a can-can dancer's garter. Why? Because Jacques Offenbach, the bad boy of opera, unleashed Orpheus in the Underworld. A musical masterpiece that was more scandalous than a royal tryst and more fun than a champagne-fueled bacchanal. Okay, so imagine this. It's October 21st, 1858. The air in Paris is thick with perfume, intrigue, and the anticipation of a brand new operetta. The curtain rises at the Théâtre des Bouffes Parisien, and suddenly, the audience is transported to Mount Olympus, but not the stuffy, marble-columned Olympus you learned about in school. This Olympus is a hot mess, honey. A place where the gods are more interested in partying and philandering than ruling the universe. Offenbach was a master of satire, a musical jester who could skewer the elite with a melody and a wink. Orpheus in the underworld poked fun at everything from Greek mythology to the uptight morals of Napoleon III's court. It was like Saturday Night Live set to a waltz. And the Parisian elite were clutching their pearls and fanning themselves in shock. And then there was the can-can. Baby. This wasn't your grandma's ballroom dance. This was a high-kicking, skirt-swirling, leg-revealing extravaganza that sent shockwaves through Parisian society. Those scandalous courtesans in their ruffled petticoats and stockings. They were like the Beyoncé and Rihanna of their day, breaking boundaries and setting hearts racing. The critics hated it, honey. They called it vulgar, frivolous, and a disgrace to the noble art of opera. But the public? They went wild for it. Orpheus in the Underworld was a smash hit, running for over 200 performances and making Offenbach the toast of Paris. It was like the Hamilton of its day, a musical phenomenon that everyone had to see. So there you have it, folks, the story of Orpheus in the Underworld, a scandalous, satirical, and utterly delightful operetta that proved that sometimes the best way to deal with the absurdity of life is to laugh at it. And if you ever get the chance to see it, I suggest you grab a glass of champagne, kick up your heels, and join the can-can. Wahoo!
Odd news bang, spreading the wings of reality on the torso of delusion.
And now for the stories making headlines in tomorrow's papers. The Daily Mail screams, Ming boat madness. Dutch dreams dashed in 17th century sea showdown. The Financial Times leads with, Bank run bonanza. It's 1907 and the cash is flowing out. The Daily Telegraph opts for, crowning glory. George II gets the royal treatment. The Guardian takes a more tongue-in-cheek approach with, Taiwan tango. Ming Navy wipes the floor with European wannabes. The Sun, always the jokester, goes with, King and Queen together forever, don't bet on it. And finally, the Times chooses, cash crunch. It's 1907 and everyone's broke. That's all for tonight's News Bang. Tune in tomorrow for more sensationalized news. And remember, if you're not living on the edge, you're taking up too much space.
Tune in next time for more artificially intelligent hilarity. News Bang is a comedy show written and recorded by AI. All voices impersonated. Nothing here is real. Good night.